My friend, let me ask you something. What if I told you that the financial system has a door that most people never knew existed? A door that allows you to access your own money, built up over years of hard work, without paying the penalty that everyone says is unavoidable? Sounds like something only lottery winners get, right? But it is not. Because life, my friend, is rarely fair. The person who started with less, who built everything from zero, who never had a safety net underneath them, that person is going to need to be smarter, more strategic, more attentive to the rules of the game. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about today. Here is the paradox nobody tells you. Working your entire life can be a mistake if you do not know the right time to stop. There are people out there stacking money in retirement accounts as if that is all that matters, without realizing that health, energy, and time are assets that depreciate every single day. And then they reach 70 with money in the bank and a bad knee. This video exists so that does not happen to you. In the next few minutes, you are going to learn about the rule that very few people know, about the moment when money and health align for the only time in your life, and about how to plan your exit from the workforce in a way that actually makes sense. Stay until the end, because what comes last is what will stick with you the most. You know what is fascinating about the story of people who build wealth with their own hands? It is that they did not discover magic secrets. They simply learned to use rules that already existed, rules that nobody had bothered to explain clearly. The Rule of 55 is exactly that. It is an IRS provision that allows a worker to make penalty-free withdrawals from a 401k or 403b plan, as long as they leave their job in the year they turn 55 or any year after that. That means if you are 55, burned out, or simply want to recalibrate your life, your own money may be available to you much sooner than you ever thought possible. And that completely changes the conversation about when it is actually possible to retire with dignity. Most people have never heard of this rule because the financial system has no interest in telling you that you can leave early. There is an entire machine built to keep you producing, contributing, postponing. So when someone finally discovers that a legitimate exit exists, without penalties, the natural reaction is disbelief. But the numbers are there and they are real. You will still pay ordinary income tax on those withdrawals, just as you would with any traditional retirement account distribution. What does not happen is that 10% early withdrawal penalty that eats into your wealth before you even get to use it. For someone who built a life of honest work and now wants to enjoy it, that difference is not a detail. That difference is freedom. Now here is where a lot of people stumble, and it is worth paying close attention. First, the money has to stay inside your current employer's plan. If you rolled it into an IRA, the Rule of 55 simply no longer applies to that money. Second, only your current employer's plan qualifies, not the 401ks from previous jobs. Third, and this is critical, not every employer plan allows withdrawals under this rule. Before making any move, a conversation with HR or the plan administrator is non-negotiable. And if your money is already in an IRA, there is another path called 72T, or substantially equal periodic payments, but that route requires committing to a fixed withdrawal schedule for at least 5 years with no ability to change course once you start. These are strategies that work, but they demand careful planning and, ideally, the guidance of a trusted CPA or financial planner. Now let us talk about something that financial reports almost never include in the equation, because it does not show up on any spreadsheet: your health. There is a documented pattern in how retirees spend money, and it has a curious name: the retirement spending smile. At the beginning, people spend more. Travel, experiences, hobbies that sat on the shelf for decades. Then spending naturally declines. And further down the road, it rises again, this time driven by healthcare costs. That pattern reveals something the raw numbers do not show. Retirement is not a straight line. It has phases, and each phase calls for a different kind of resource. The most active phase, the one experts call the go-go years, happens precisely between 55 and 65. That is when the body still responds, when the energy is still there, when plans are still physically within reach. Think about someone who always dreamed of seeing the world, learning an instrument, being present in their grandchildren's lives while they can still run around in the park with them. That person, if they wait until 70 to retire, may have the money, but maybe not the knees. Maybe not the energy. Maybe not the time they thought they would have. Recognizing that reality is the first step toward making more conscious choices. The rule of 55 exists precisely at that intersection, at the exact point where access to your money and the fullness of your health meet simultaneously for the last time. It is a window, and like every window, it does not stay open forever. And here is one of the most important truths about financial planning that very few people have the courage to say out loud. Working longer almost always means more money accumulated. That is a fact. $100,000 invested at 6% per year for 10 years nearly doubles in value. Every additional year of work is another year of contributions, another year of compound interest working in your favor. The opportunity cost of leaving early is real and significant. Recognizing that is not an argument to keep waiting. It is an argument to calculate more carefully. Because at the same time, retiring at 55 could mean 35 to 40 years of life without formal employment, and your portfolio has to carry that weight. The math of longevity demands an investment strategy different from the conventional one, possibly with greater exposure to growth assets, like an 80-20 stock-to-bond allocation instead of the traditional 50-50. Before any decision, a person needs to sit down with a pen, a piece of paper, or a spreadsheet, and look honestly at both sides of the equation. On the expense side, housing, transportation, healthcare, leisure, inflation over the years. Even without a mortgage, there are still property taxes, insurance, and home maintenance. On the income side, Roth accounts, taxable brokerage accounts, HSA, any other source that could serve as a bridge until Social Security kicks in. Free tools like the one on the FINRA website or platforms like Bolden let you run Monte Carlo analyses, the same method professional financial planners use to estimate the probability of success for a retirement plan. There is no substitute for doing that math. And there is no shame in asking for help to do it. There is one more dimension to this planning that goes beyond money and health. Tax strategy. When a person retires early, they frequently enter years of lower income. And those years are a rare opportunity to convert traditional accounts to Roth accounts, moving money from a taxable environment to one that is tax-free in the future. The key is calibrating that move carefully so you do not jump into a higher tax bracket. If someone is pulling a lot from their 401k to live on, those withdrawals count as ordinary income and can crowd out the space available for Roth conversions. It is a financial chess game that demands attention, and that is exactly why early retirement is not synonymous with financial carelessness. On the contrary, it requires more intelligence, more planning, more discipline than simply waiting until 65 and letting the system decide for you. And here is perhaps the most liberating point in this entire conversation. The rule of 55 is not all or nothing. It does not require a person to never work again. It does not dictate how much to withdraw. It opens a possibility, and it is up to each person to decide what to do with that possibility. Someone might use it to take a sabbatical year and then return to the workforce. Another might use it to work part-time doing something they genuinely love, without depending on that paycheck to survive. A third might finally use it to launch the business that has been sitting in their plans for years. Early retirement, when well planned, is not the end of productivity. It is the beginning of a different relationship with work, one where work is a choice, not an obligation. So my friend, the moment has come for the question you need to ask yourself. Are you building wealth thinking only about the final number? Or are you also thinking about when and how you are going to use that money? Because there is an enormous difference between accumulating and actually living. And that difference is called strategy. The rule of 55 is just one of the tools available to those who decide to play this game with intelligence. There is so much more to learn about how to structure a portfolio that can last for decades, about how to use your low-income years to your advantage, about how to plan the transition from work to financial freedom without making a costly mistake. This channel has videos on every one of those topics, and I invite you to explore all of them, because every piece of content you consume here is another piece in the puzzle of your financial independence. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because the ones who show up first have an edge in this game, and the next video might contain exactly the piece that is missing from your plan. My friend, I want to finish with something that goes beyond the numbers. Building wealth, planning a dignified retirement, pursuing financial freedom, all of that takes effort. Especially for those who did not start at the front of the line, who did not inherit advantages, who had to figure all of this out on their own. But I believe in you. I believe that every person who made it this far has within them the capacity to do more, to live better, and to be living proof that where you start does not have to determine where you finish. Life may not be fair at the starting line, but the finish line, that one you can build yourself.